At this point, if we're not going to do it right, then let's not do it at all. Clearly, nobody has a real desire to tell Whitney Houston's story the way that it should be told without it giving made for TV, cash grab, or let's get the fans that really love her to go run up and stream her music. This movie was no better than all of the other countless unauthorized biopics of her life, except here we had license and rights to use the music. This was not it. Guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Tyra here with another struggle review, here to discuss I Want to Dance with Somebody. Now, this movie is from 2022 and it stars Naomi Ackie. Now, before we get into all things, it's another one. Here's another one. I need you guys to drop down and subscribe to my channel and like this video. I'm going to give you guys a moment to do that, and then we're going to come back and discuss. Just leave her alone. Just leave Miss Houston alone. If we're not going to do it right, then let's not do it at all. Just leave her alone. Let her rest. Nothing that they have released so far has really contributed anything to her legacy or her artistry. Let her rest. Let the voice sleep.
Go back.
Now, getting into this movie, I would like to point out some things I noticed way before this movie came out that just made me go, Now, to start off, this movie was directed by Kasi Lemmons. She is probably most known for directing Eve's Bayou. Of course, she is a well-known actress, but she has shined the most as a director. She has directed really great things like Talk to Me, the Madam C.J. Walker story Self-Made, and the Women's of Movement story that shows Emmett Till's mother, Mamie Till, and the role that she played in the likes of the civil rights movement after what happened to her son. So not only do we have Madam C.J. Walker, but we have Petey Greene and we have Mamie Till. 3 actual real life stories that she was able to bring to life as a director. Now, mind you, 2 of these were in the form of miniseries, and she also gave us Harriet. And then we have the writer of this story, Anthony McCarten, who paid for the rights to Whitney's story right out of his own pocket. He also gave us Bohemian Rhapsody, which explains a whole lot. Bohemian Rhapsody was a very shallow movie. It was also PG-13, felt very paint by numbers. We got the hits, but it was poorly written, poorly executed, especially when it came down to the characters. It was not a good movie. It was safe, at times tedious, and absolutely forgettable. How do we get that from the likes of Queen and Freddie Mercury? Now, getting into the things that I did like about this movie, for the most part, the reenactments of Whitney Houston's looks were on point. From the wardrobe, the styling, to the hair. When she was singing the national anthem, her singing for the first time in front of Clive Davis at the Sweetwater Club, the reenactments of her videos, I Want to Dance with Somebody, It's Not Right But It's Okay, or even the very last scene at the end of the movie of her medley performance at the 1994 American Music Awards. It was on point, and I could appreciate that. I also really enjoyed the fact that we had the rights to Whitney Houston's music this time. I do not think that I could take another biopic, not that I wanted one in the first place, but one where we are singing around, kind of singing adjacent, but it's not quite her music. No, we have it and it's here. Whitney Houston is present, heard, remastered, and is very much so appreciated. This movie does sort of kind of do a good job of reminding you of why she is the voice. Her voice is timeless, heavenly, and will always and forever fill a room. Though I wanted more, we do get concert Whitney here, and they are playing the hits, and I was singing. I've been waiting for the phone to ring all night. Now you wanna make me feel so good. I was having a good time. That you give good love to me so good. Take this heart of mine into your hands. You give good, all the good love is here. Saving All My Love for You, How Will I Know, The Greatest Love of All, Heartbreak Hotel, Shoop Shoop. Name them, she has them. The catalog is so thick. And just getting into Whitney's ear for music and her being so selective, and even though she wasn't a writer, she could hear something and listen to it and make it her own. It was just absolutely nice. I wanted more of that. And just to hear her say things like, you know, I want great big songs that fill a room. That is literally all she has. Though it is, you know, filled with diversity, and she can give you R&B, she can give you pop, she can give you diva, she can give you gospel, but it's always going to be big, grand, and fill a room. I wanted some more of that. And lastly, portions of Naomi Ackie as Whitney Houston. You could tell that she really studied her, tried to embrace her, and tried to really give us Whitney. If you know, look twice, blink left, and squint one eye, you really felt like you heard her, whether it was through the cadence of her voice, the mannerisms that she used. People talk most often about Whitney Houston's singing voice, but nobody ever remembers that she has a very distinctive speaking voice. It's really precise, really clear. She enunciates every single word. You can hear every single syllable. It's very beautiful with like a hit of ASMR. And even though it wasn't 100% consistent, at times I did feel like I saw and mostly heard Whitney. And I can also really appreciate the fact that when we are not using Whitney Houston's voice or, you know, a remastered mix, you are actually getting into Naomi herself singing and harmonizing, and they're blending and mellowing out her voice with Whitney Houston's. So anytime in the movie where there was any harmonizing, you know, a little skibbity bop 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 around the house, a little ooh yeah in the studio, this, that, and the third, her on the couch chilling, this is actually Naomi's singing voice. I thought she did great there. Now, getting into the things that I disliked, nothing ever associated with telling Whitney Houston's life story should be attached to PG-13 or 2 hours and 30 minutes. We definitely needed an R rating, and we needed a whole miniseries. Thank, you know, Jackson 5 American Dream, thank The Temptations, thank the New Edition story. It is practically impossible to give us anything less without leaving out monumental moments, giving us Whitney range, time for her to develop, as well as the characters who are surrounding her. Give us a decent plot and give us character arcs. You cannot do that with somebody this grand in 2 hours. Now, of course, we do have the likes of Ray, Selena, What's Love Got to Do with It, but those movies work because of who's all involved on production, who's behind the camera, and who was there at the time of shooting. For Selena, her family was extremely involved, and we all know that Abraham does not play about Selena's likeness. And even without that, Selena was an introduction for a lot of people to who Selena was at all. Unless you were from Texas around that time, you know, or you were into Tejano music, a lot of people didn't know who she was up until the release of this movie. And then we have movies like Ray and What's Love Got to Do with It. Ray Charles was there. Tina Turner was there. And I don't think that it was any mistake or coincidence that in all three of those movies, we start off with them as children, fleshing out their childhood so we get to know them firsthand as a character before we even get into them as an entertainer. But where do we start here with Whitney Houston's story? Hi, I'm Robin. We immediately started off with her relationship and Robin. In no way did we take out any time to get to know Whitney Houston. We hear all of these stories constantly about how Whitney was outside. Young, mischievous, rebellious, outside. Or maybe we could go beyond that and start even earlier. Get into the values that was instilled in her early on from her parents. The toxicity, her being trained and coached to sing by Sissy. Her, you know, money hungry, looking for a come-up-ass father. They tried to both live through her. You know, her brothers, remember them? Where were they? We got a little glimpse of that, and then it was just nothing. I would really love to get into fleshing her out as a person from the very beginning to see why, even at the young age that she was at, she was already beginning to turn to drugs to get some relief. Not just her brother. She was trying to run from something. The fact that she never actually wanted to be a singer or had a passion for it in the first place. The fact that this woman had the greatest voice of all time, had the pick of the litter as far as man was beauty, like beyond measure, and she ended up with a Bobby Brown because she identified with him and found a kindred spirit. Not to, but she could have had anybody. She could have had anybody, but she went to what she gravitated to, whether it was Bobby Brown or something like just the distasteful things. Her never being able to truly embrace who she wanted to be, whether it was from her image to her hair to her sexual preference, we really don't know. Those things did not start with Clive Davis when she was signed and they were worried about her image. This started long before from the two people who wanted perfection and wanted her to be a princess. I love that whole scene that we got of her on the Merv Griffin show in her first performance to the world of The Greatest Love of All, and you have her father already worried about her hair, her image, her skin, and you have to look a certain way. You can't wear these type of pants, or you even have Sissy in the back with the choir and the key changes and lift it up, let's do this. Like those scenes were great. I wanted so much more of that, and I felt like it ran so much deeper. It says a whole lot that you, as the daughter, you're not able to entrust in somebody like your father and know deep down that he always has your best interest at heart, especially when it comes to your finances. That is terrible. This started and she was conditioned from the very beginning, but we don't really choose to revel in that. We are too busy getting into us having a relationship with Robin. We're having a good time. We're friends. We're not friends. We're kissing. We're moving in together. It's a good time. Oh, my family doesn't feel like this is okay. We're trying to disguise this and have her be their creative assistant. Meanwhile, oh, you're my best friend. If I had to hear some shit about Robin, you're my best friend, like Bubba was my best good friend. And even I know that ain't just something you can find around the corner. Like, I don't want to hear this. I would much rather be somewhere else. We thought that we were dropping some bombs with, oh, you slept with Jermaine Jackson. Like, child, that ain't nobody's tea. If y'all wanted to go on and push it, y'all could have gave me some Eddie Murphy or some Kevin Costner. I just did not care about it either way. Even in that whole scenario of Robin forever being designated as a best friend and not truly being able to live her best life with Whitney Houston, or them, remaining friends, or, dipping back, or Whitney being back. I just really don't even care about that. In that entire scenario, the person I was feeling sorry for was Robin. Like, I'm not here to learn or hear about Robin or really just even give a fuck about her feelings. I'm sorry. I was here for Whitney Houston, and we were spending so much time building up and getting to know other characters, which brings me to Clive Davis. The producer here, Clive Davis, and Pat Houston, oh, they came out on the other side of this movie looking clean as hell. Clive Davis is everything to Whitney Houston. He is just not, this random higher up executive that saw her talent and decided to sign her. No, they are practically besties. He's a friend, confidant, counselor, therapist, a huge part of her selective music process. And at any given time that she needs something, needs to talk about something, he is a lending ear and a shoulder to cry on. And that's when he's not being the voice of reason to say that she needs help. Meanwhile, Pat Houston is here as Whitney's low-key, light-skinned right-hand man. Pat didn't have a strong presence, but the little presence that she does have here, she looks like Whitney's rock. Like, I find it very funny that between the two of them, the people who were maybe talked about the most when it came to maybe jealousy, not really caring, not always having their best interest at heart, they are the producers of this movie, and they look really good here. All the characters here and the choices that were made just really needed some works. Not only do we have the likeness of Clive Davis and Pat Houston, and we have, Sissy just kind of being played to the left, and this is more geared towards her relationship with her father, and we have the whole thing with Robin, but we also get some Bobby Brown here. Wow. Wow, okay, like I said, fuck you, nigga. Like, first of all, everybody's acting here outside of, Stanley Tucci playing Clive Davis and Naomi Ackie, or Clarke Peters here portraying Whitney Houston's father. I feel like they delivered the most. But when we get into Nafessa Williams as Robin, Tamara Tunie as Sissy, and especially Ashton Sanders as Bobby Brown, what happened. It was really given, I've never acted before, and you know, this is a made-for-TV type of situation. Ashton Sanders here as Bobby Brown, y'all tried it. Like, I love how they gave that half-ass piece of performance at the goddamn Soul Train Awards. Like, Ashton Sanders is one of those young actors coming up for me that is just not consistent with delivery. Something like Moonlight, he shines, but it's almost like he has no range to give us anything else. And sometimes he can come off as wooden. He can do a great job in something like Moonlight or Native Son, but when we get into stuff like maybe the Wu-Tang Clan series, I'm trying to go here, then we go here, we gonna take it here, Wu-Tang, like, it is just so goddamn stale. So when he turns around, hey, don't worry about it, you're Whitney Houston. Like, sir, get out my face. Get out my face. Whitney, it's me and you against the world. You know, we from the hood. We understand each other. Let's get it. Wu-Tang Killer. Like, sir, go have several seats. Like, Bobby Brown was painted here as a user. He would be freaking destitute, addicted, and homeless if it wasn't for him leeching off of Whitney Houston. It comes off as he was never anybody, never had anything, and he attached himself to Whitney Houston, married her even though he had a baby going away, and he has been leeching off of doing drugs and using her for years. I was like, damn. Woo! And just like everything else here in this movie, we can only go so far and say so much due to the rating and the writing. We continue to see her and Bobby Brown have these PG-13 ass fights. Like, oh girl, I was just, oh, don't touch my face, Bobby. Like, the whole thing with them fighting in the house, you know, get out of my house, get your stuff, them stopping in the middle of the street once she finds out that you have a baby on the way and you just proposed. Whew, I was holding that in. Oh, they made Bobby Brown trash. Like, he looks so trash, and it's just like, those moments, if they were fleshed out, if their relationship was fleshed out, like, what we not gonna do is act like they weren't in total bliss ass love. Like, if Whitney Houston didn't love nothing else, once upon a time, she loved her some Bobby Brown, and that was just totally absent here from this movie. That's when they weren't having the little tit for tat between him and Robin. Like, I was just completely over it. You know, I was gonna tell you your father was in the hospital, you know, after the tour, you know, after you made us some money, like, you gonna make the money, right? So you gotta take care of me. Like, every step you take, you gotta take care of Bobby B. Like, all like, it was just, you could just tell who was behind the writing and behind the camera. And I'm never going to say that their relationship was perfect, because absolutely not. I even love how on the end they tried to clean it up with, like, you know, whatever the tabloids may say, Bobby, you weren't the reason that I was on drugs, and I want you to know that. Like, yeah, I wish you would tell the tabloids that everybody else think. Like, they tried, but it was just like, why are we even here? If we weren't really going to dive into these things, just like with the drug use being alluded to from the very beginning of the movie with Bong, with her brothers, or you see her with a little bit of cocaine, or once we get to the Your Love Is My Love tour and you just see her full out with, you know, Bobby, they losing it, child. They losing it. Or you see her get a little bit more irrational with her behavior, jumping on that couch, child, and stuff. Oh, it was so rushed, and it was so poorly executed when it wasn't being boring. If we wanted to include the toxicity of her relationship with both of her parents, especially her father, if we wanted to include the relationship that she had with Robin, if we wanted to include the marriage to Bobby Brown, allude to the drugs, allude to the abuse, just allude to the trauma overall, all while still surrounding her career, we could have done that and still gave her grace and still humanize her, still have us grow with her as a character in the highs and the lows, and triumph for her and root for her just as Whitney Houston in the legend that she is. We could have had that. Even without that, if we just said we don't want to include or revel in any of those things, this is not what this movie is about, which is what this movie is. This is more about her music and her impact. And yet and still, I don't feel her music's impact in this movie. Where was it? Besides constantly referencing, oh, here's another #1, another accolade, another award. Oh, we went #1 again. Oh, let's have another selective montage of her performing, of her, you know, in the studio. But the impact was not felt. People have to remember who she was. Like, amongst everything else, before that, she is the voice. During the 80s, especially the height of the 80s and the 90s, Whitney was everything. Whitney was freaking everything. Outside of her just being the voice, she was one of the few, like, first black entertainers to really push through as far as being an artist, being big, being on MTV, her videos just really being, she was in pop. Like, I actually love the idea of her receiving, well, I don't love it, but just the idea that she could receive pushback, because a lot of people didn't feel like she was black enough, or, you know, oh, you switched up, you chose a side, you are catering to another, you know, demographic and not to your own people. That was so interesting, but we don't really even get into the fact that she came out the gate as more of a pop universal artist, and she made an impact. Like, not only did she have people, well, some in her own community trying to pigeonhole her as a black artist and just, oh, you can only do R&B, you can strictly be this type of artist, you know, you can't do pop, you can't be universal, you cannot be a grand singer like every other white entertainer in the world. Like, no. Not only did that not happen, but then you have the songs that she is selecting just because they were hits, and it was, you know, more of a, not even pop appeal, but everybody loved Whitney. That just made her receive all this. Like, we get a little bit like, oh, are they booing me? That one moment of them booing her at the Soul Train Awards, or those little couple of moments where she is being interviewed and it's, you know, I know how to sing. Like, I wanted so much more than that. Like, what was that really doing to her mentality to feel so much backlash in the very beginning of her career? If we don't get anything else from these movies that they keep producing, or when we have interviews and you go back and listen to things that Whitney Houston had to say, she did want to be liked, and she did care about what people thought about her as an artist. So to get pushback like that when coming out the gate, it was literally Michael Jackson, Prince, you know, Janet a little, but it was literally them, and it was her. That was it. Like, she opened up so many avenues for so many different entertainers. She is literally the blueprint. I didn't feel that here. I did not feel that here. Not only was it rushed, but the impact was just nowhere. Like, I just really wanted to see how the world stopped when Whitney Houston came out and did what she did, you know, single after single, number one after number one, like nationwide, everywhere. She is beloved, album after album. And then, you know, we are an actress, we're coming out with these movies, like all of these things that she is doing, all while, you know, behind the camera, she is not okay for the most part. She's starting to self-medicate, all while being used by her family in the background financially. I wanted to get more into that and what that was really doing to her. I really love that we kind of hinted at her voice in the instrument. Of course, we have Clive Davis repeatedly, like, you know, you smoking cigarettes and just, you know, the drug use, what that is doing to her instrument, her voice. But outside of that, her in the songs that were being, you know, chosen for her later on, that were being wrote for her, where she had to, you know, go up certain octaves and, you know, lift the range, use her voice, like, she was tired. Like, when we got to the portion of the movie where you could just tell that she was tired, you even have her say, you know, I don't know how much longer I can do this. You know, I think it was the Bobby child. It was like, girl, come on, we gotta get this money and make it up. And make, get your butt out here, girl. It was very, rock me, baby. It was very that. But just with that, along with her father, like, oh, you can do it, you're my princess, you're my baby girl, you're my Whitney, like, make it happen, in her voice, like, what that was doing to her. Like, we have grand songs. Like, there is not one Whitney Houston song where she is just, you know, chilling and it's just pop, 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 pop. Like, no, every single song is woo, woo, ah. Like, it is like, oh, it is just so much. Like, I really liked the scene when she was meeting with the producer and she was going over the runs. I forgot what song it was for, but she was like, that's like 28 counts of me. Like, I can't take it. It's just like, you can do it, you're Whitney. Like, I not only do I have these really intense songs, but I am forever touring to, you know, make up on the back end for what's being lost, for whatever my father is doing, what business venture and what he is pretending is a business venture, all while masking what he is spending my money on, or, you know, what she may be having to spend, or what Bobby Brown, like, she was just being used on all fronts. And it's just like, damn, we needed some more of that. Because if we can identify with that, then we can identify with Whitney when she was at her worst. Or the whole, you know, princess baby girl, when he pulled her in his face, like, you are pretty much dying here in the hospital, daddy, you know, get my money. I want, like, Like, we know it, of course, but just to see it there, it's just like, with all these things that are happening around her, like, Daddy, I trusted you. Like, how could you do this to me? Like, all of that with a mix of, you know, the fans, the need to perform, the voice, the vocal range, the money. Like, you could see how all of this pressure could be on her shoulders to where she would turn to a substance. But we're not reveling in that a whole lot. We are getting to the songs, honey. You know, those great shots of the national anthem. I'm like, if we get one more shot of a fan or Bobby Brown or Robin or Sissy sitting at home, yes, baby. Yeah, like, I ain't come here for that. I did not come here for that. You know, this is, you know, a beautiful shot or a reenactment to look at, but let's get to the bottom. I am loving all of these songs and I am singing along, but what is up with the continuity issues within the script in this movie? They did not put any title cards or the year and the date of what time it was for a reason, because it was all over the place. Why are we giving I'm Your Baby Tonight realness with the wigs and the costuming when this is supposed to be the Your Love Is My Love tour? This is, you know, later in the 90s, and she was Versace down and she had on that iconic bob wig that was her favorite at the moment. What is going on with the looks? Why are we referencing why does it hurt so? Why are we talking about why does it hurt so bad and referencing Babyface as a songwriter or future producer, and we are still in the 80s? Like, what is going on? Why does she and Bobby Brown have on their iconic matching red outfits, aka the We Have Something in Common era, and it is still supposed to be the 80s? Or that, like, it was just so all over the place. Like, at times a lot of the looks were on point, but it was still confusing with the time and the era that we were supposed to be in. The hair that was on her head, the performances that were happening at the time, the interviews that were happening at the time. We just had Bobby, like, it was, I was like, what? Like, if we cannot take out the 2 seconds it is to get things logically correct, like, how am I supposed to have faith in your movie, huh? Like, I could spend literally all day on those things. I did appreciate, I guess, the ending, though everything just got lackluster and rushed. Like, I love how they have Sissy just bust into Whitney's house, and it's just like, oh, how long has this been going on? And she has her arrested, and it's just like, that's the first time anybody really noticed outside of Robin, like, oh, Whitney isn't okay. Whitney's on drugs. We need to get her some help. When Sissy has been very vocal about trying to constantly get her daughter into rehab, or even just Whitney trying rehab repeatedly herself and just not really having any success, or just, you know, the drugs escalating throughout the years to where it was just uncontrollable. Like, I love the whole factor of her father. It was very much so giving Britney Spears daddy, like, like, if I had to hear him call her princess woman, like, shut up, nigga. Like, I loved how the little white blonde guy who gave her drugs in the 80s, and, you know, oh, hey, Miss Houston, can I have your autograph? It's the same nigga who showed up like 25 years later to give her goddamn drugs at the hotel on the night that she died. Like, ooh, continuity, honey. Like, that whole thing there with that scene and the water running and Naomi singing, you know, home, it was touching. Or even her coming to the revelation that her voice is not once what it was, or just even when you do try to get better, it's just like, after everything that I was, you know, the voice, all the hits, everything that I delivered, everybody is still holding me to the mistakes that I made, the image, you know, the being Bobby Brown, the tabloids, the predicament that I had my daughter in, the whole, you know, Bobby Brown in the trial, just me at my worst. You hear people shouting, are you gonna go to rehab again? Or are you gonna relapse? Or her really trying to captivate an audience again with her appearance on Oprah, and what that performance for Clive Davis that night meant to her. I was like, oh, Clive Davis, you're not gonna show the fact that the band played on, you know, you were still partying, living it up with her body upset. You know, it don't even matter. It don't even matter. But just that, you know, I need this to be the comeback. Her still really serious about the image and what she wanted people to think of her, and I want to be remembered for my voice and captivate audiences like I once did. You know, I'm still that girl. I'm still young Whitney. I still got it. Like, it's really tragic that she went out not knowing, even at that point, that she was still enough. You gave enough. You didn't have to give anything else. You had nothing to prove. You were enough, you know, for who you were. Like, girl, you're like Bobby. You Whitney Houston. Like, girl, you Whitney Houston. Like, but Ending with, you know, the medley of the songs, I did like that, but just overall, the last thing that just wasn't it for this movie was sadly Naomi Ackie here as Whitney Houston. I couldn't get into it. I couldn't, like, let's not even get to the beauty. Like, Whitney Houston is one of the most beautiful women in the world. Like, not to take anything away from Naomi Ackie, but she does not look like her. She looked like a mix between Molly from Insecure and a little Brandy. Like, she has a beautiful face, but it's not a Whitney Houston face. But that's not all that important. All the biopics we've seen, you do not have to look like the person to body them and carry a role. She didn't body it and she did not carry it, so it did not translate to me as a viewer. Whitney's charisma, her strong attitude, her being super duper opinionated, her laughter, her smile, being such a fresh, genuine person, like what people love her for outside of her voice, like her essence, her spirit, it was missing here. It was void. Like, those are such big shoes to fill. Like, that's a lot to put on her shoulders, but it was not here for me. Being, you know, Whitney Houston, first of all, like, they tried it with them scenes of her singing. I was like, where's the sweat? Whitney Houston will blow the roof off of some shit, but she will sweat. Like, where's Whitney Houston sweat? Like, that bothered me that she wasn't sweating nowhere in this movie. But just who she is, like, something was missing, and it was like, you know, every scene, it was like it just never really, like, it just did not go, and that was so unfortunate because, like I said in the beginning, I could see that she tried, but it just did not translate. She is, you know, from the other side of the pond. So of course she was working with trying to make sure she concealed her own accent, which she did great at. Like, I did not hear it, but it was breaking to where I was like, oh, I didn't really feel any Whitney there. Like, that mannerism didn't give me Whitney. And then we get into the ending where it's just over the top, where she's, woo, Clarke, I got a song, woo, it's just not. And after this movie, like, I just want them to leave her alone. Like, leave her alone. If I want to watch anything, I will watch the Whitney documentary from 2018. I feel like that was executed really well and I really enjoyed it, and it's something that I would go back to watch again. This falls right in there with all the other biopics that I do not care to revisit ever. Like, I was yawning. I was like, man, is it still going? Is it over? Like, I just want this to be over, and I hate to watch anything associated with Whitney Houston that I just want to be over. And that's absolutely the last thing I want to be thinking about when we are thinking about Whitney Houston. She is a legend and she deserves better. Well, you guys, that was my review of I Want to Dance with Somebody. I hope you enjoyed it. Please drop down and tell me if you did. I am so happy that this is the last video that we are dropping before the new year comes in. I'm so glad that you guys are here. Like, we have grown so much as, like, I am so proud of myself. I'm proud of us, because this is all about me and you. Like, I'm so proud of the growth of this channel, and it has meant so much to me. I cannot wait to see what happens in the new year. Like, I feel I gotta do like Craig Mack hands, like, we about to be outside, like. But you guys drop down and tell me what you thought about this movie, what you thought about my review. I look forward to reading them. I see you in the year 2023. Bye.